Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. We are your hosts, Bull and P, and today we're going to be talking about Alabama's new hire with Kalen DeBoer. Now, Kalen DeBoer, for those of y'all who don't know, is Washington's old head coach, and he took his team to the national championship this season. They put up a whole lot of numbers. I think he's a great offensive mind. He's been a winning coach everywhere that he's been. But P, just off the cusp, what do you think about this hire?
It's not like a super flashy hire in my opinion. I think it is a good hire. He's probably one of the biggest names that they could have went out and got. Just in terms of the success he had, obviously took his team to the college football playoffs and to the championship. Obviously has had success. Success there at Washington, pretty much everywhere he's been. For him coming into SEC country, it's gonna come down to can he recruit and can he really kind of win over that locker room. Being around a bunch of guys that are used to a guy like Nick Saban, kind of used to that type of bravado. Can he kind of carry that same swagger, walk into kids' living rooms and win on the recruiting trail down here in the Southeast? Will kind of determine how well he does. But I think it's a solid hire. He'll probably do well there.
We will definitely touch on all that. Definitely want to talk about the X's and O's, what this hire is going to mean to Tennessee on the field. And then also, like you said, what is he going to do trying to walk into young prospects' home down here in the South? So first things first, go ahead and pull up some of the numbers from Kalen over the past couple of seasons, right? And you can see that he's 104-12 as a head coach. And obviously that is really good, okay? That's a very high winning percentage. I don't know exactly what it is, but I do kind of want to focus a little bit more on the Power 5 teams that he's had and just kind of talk about, what his offense looks like and, what we can expect from Kalen and from Alabama now. So for Vol fans who don't know, Kalen does run the same offense that Tennessee does, and that is the air raid. Now he runs a little bit of a different variant. I don't see a whole lot of hurry up, out of his offenses like what Coach Heupel does, but it is going to be the same in a lot of the principles, where they're going to try to stretch a football field out. They want the quarterback to get the ball out of his hands quickly. It's going to be a whole lot of just kind of like reading one person. And, our safeties are going to have to be really, really good moving forward. So I think that's going to be a place of emphasis for Tennessee. And, I think one of the ways to beat the air raid is obviously to get a good pass rush, but also to play man-to-man coverage. We'll talk about that just a little bit more. All right, and if you look at his numbers from when he was the head coach for the Indiana Hoosiers back in 2019, you see that, for a Big Ten team, those are pretty solid passing numbers. Obviously, it's not great. And, I think that he was the offensive coordinator maybe like the year leading up to him being the head coach there. But I want to continue on because these numbers just get better as he gets more experience, on the Power 5 level as a head coach. And right here, okay, this is from Fresno State. We've got 2020 and 2021. You can see that obviously 2020, that's the COVID year. And, they only passed for 2,000 yards, but that's still pretty good, for a COVID year. But fast forward to 2021 and those numbers double, okay? Over 4,000 yards passing. And, you see all the touchdowns that they racked up. They didn't do a great job running the football, but, you can just tell that obviously wherever he goes, his offenses are going to be, very pass heavy, and his quarterbacks are going to be right around, 67 to, 70 something percent. And, it's going to be tough. Obviously it's very similar to what Tennessee likes to do. So I think that it's going to be tough in a couple of different facets. Now I'm just going to continue to go on to 2022 to 2023. This is at Washington. You can see that the offense just exploded. Those are some crazy numbers. P, what are your thoughts on this?
Man, I didn't realize he was putting up these type of numbers on the offensive side. That's kind of scary, him coming into a place like Alabama with the talent that they're going to have in that roster, the things that he can do. It almost kind of makes you question about a guy like George McIntyre. Is he going to look at these numbers and kind of get excited about that? But, he's clearly a guy that can put up numbers, can put up points. Again, he'll probably have a similar maybe transition as you saw Coach Heupel coming from playing wherever conference UCF is in to SEC to see does that offense translate to the SEC. And so we'll see how he can do here. But, man, he's putting up some beautiful numbers. And it's fun, like you say, the efficiency you see from the quarterbacks, very similar to what you see from Coach Heupel. And I didn't really see those types of similarities between these two coaches. But, maybe he is a guy that can really, one of the better offensive minds in the game. So that's an interesting fit, him going to a place like Alabama and see kind of how he can take that program from here.
With George Mack, right, is he going to look at a school like Alabama now, which, obviously he was already looking at them, but is he going to look at them a little bit more closely now, considering that they run the same type of offense that we do? And it kind of had me concerned, but one of the things that I will say is Alabama does have a 5-star in the 2024 class that I think fits, this type of an offensive scheme very well in Julian Saban. And, it's just going to be interesting to see, is George Mack going to want to come in and compete with the guy, that's going to be coming in just a year before him? Whereas, at least with Nico, you kind of have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, right? Because Nico's only going to be here for 2 more seasons. Julian would be there for 3. So, then, George would have to wait until his 3rd season to be able to get out on the field. I don't know, Pete. I mean, like, what do you think about that aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's another key piece to it. We'll see how DeBoer can maintain his roster and his current commits. I did see Julian saying the day Saban announced his retirement, he posted like a little meme of a guy jumping off the boat. So, I don't know if that was just kind of joking around or maybe he's thinking about decommitting, but we'll see. I mean, you got to look for these guys to decommit. But if he does end up going to Bama, I think it would be in McIntyre's best interest to come to Tennessee because you want to go right behind another 5-star. I mean, you see Georgia does it all the time, and some of these guys stick around, but they end up transferring out, like we saw Vandegrift. So, and we'll see. But the numbers he puts up is attractive to quarterbacks. Has to be. I mean, should have had a Heisman winner this past season. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see. That's going to be the big thing: is can he recruit? What type of recruiter is this guy? I mean, that's going to determine how successful he is, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the thing too. Is I had kind of talked about this in a video earlier. I said, well, you know what? To me, Kalen's probably the one guy out of all the candidates that was being thrown out there that I was like, I would not really want to see him go to Alabama. I was talking to Daddy about it, and he was like, well, he hasn't ever really coached in the South. So it is a different ball game. And I think that people tend to overlook that. As good of a coach as I think that he is, from the X's and O's perspective. And also, I think as difficult as it would be to have somebody else in the same conference, especially somebody who's new, who does have a proven, winning track record, coming in with all that talent, running a very similar offense, and theirs is going to be more of a slow down pace versus ours. So maybe we could lose some more offensive linemen to them for that reason. But, it is going to be interesting to see what he does coming down to the South, because football is completely different coming down here versus playing, up north, east, northwest, everywhere else. It means so much more. It's not just about winning. It's not just about being a coach. You're like a freaking president, especially going to Alabama. So you've got a whole lot of moving pieces to it. And I'm just curious if he's going to be able to handle all that once he gets down here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it makes you think. It makes you think kind of about Brian Harsin, who went to Auburn a couple years back, came from Boise State. And I'm not sure exactly what his track record was before he went to Auburn, but he was at Boise State for at least a few years, and I think they were winning 11, 12 games a year. And he came here to Auburn. We saw how it kind of just fell apart. It's just like you said. I mean, it's a different ball game here in the SEC. We saw Urban Meyer do it years ago, coming from Utah to Florida, and we saw how that turned out. Ended up being one of the best coaches to come through the SEC for a short time here. But I don't know, man. Urban Meyer had a little bit different swagger to him. That's the thing to me is similar to what we saw Texas A&M do, getting the guy from Duke. Do those guys have enough swag to be able to compete in the SEC? And I think you look at it across the board, the exception of maybe Mississippi State. Pretty much every other, I guess Vandy, pretty much every head coach has some swag about him. Every single one of them. From a guy like Eli Drinkwitz, he has his own little personality. You don't like him, but he has something to him, right? Like, of course, Lane Kiffin, all these guys. So we'll see if he, how he does. Because even when they're interviewing him in the playoffs, or I guess after they won the Pac-12 championship, it's just like, he doesn't really have much to say. It's like he's just kind of like behind the scenes type of guy, which that's fine, but we'll see how that works in recruitment for him.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Kirby Smart's got any swag at all. I don't think he's got an ounce of swag in his whole body, man. That dude is, oh my goodness. Yeah. So
on bowl cut.
Yeah, man. Oh, and then too, I think I sent you the article, man. They about to go down because people are starting to finally realize that they're cheating. And I don't know why it's taking folks so long to get that figured out, but it sounds like people are starting to put it out there. And it also kind of sounds like Georgia's trying to tell on folks for cheating, and it sounds like that also kind of backfired on them. So hopefully they'll end up going down. That's something else. That's a whole nother part to this. Is that people are saying with Saban being gone, that Nick Saban, or that not Nick Saban, but that Kirby Smart is going to be the next Nick Saban, and that he's going to take pretty much take over the whole SEC. But I just don't see that, because again, man, maybe he will be able to get in maybe a couple of players that Alabama was going to get, but what difference does that make? Because they've had pretty much the same roster over the past 20 seasons, or, I don't know how long Kirby's been there, but really over the past 20 seasons, they've been one of the most talented rosters in the entire country. I just don't think that Kirby Smart is a very good X's and O's coach. And I think that we have one. I think that Lane Kiffin is, I think that Kalen's going to be one. And so I think, I feel like at some point he's going to start to get passed up once we do start to get more of these blue chip players in. That's just how I feel. But I don't know. What's your thoughts on Kirby Smart?
Well, to me, I feel like it's kind of been an arms race. I think a lot of the SEC coaches have known that Saban was on the verge of retiring. And at least the way I've been looking at it, I knew he was about to retire. And if you look over the past however many years, I think he's the only coach that's beat Kirby Smart in 3 years. So, in my mind, I was always trying to see, okay, can Tennessee get up to speed to go compete with a team like Georgia by the time Nick Saban retires? And I think we're closer right there. I think the same can be said for a lot of teams. You see, Ole Miss is gearing up. I think Auburn's trying to put something together. A&M just fired their coach, but they're going to try to get going. I think these teams are gearing up because they know, once Saban's out of there, it's pretty much anybody's game at this point. And you don't want Georgia to kind of take that, seriously. He's been running, and not to just crown him, even though he probably is the GOAT, but he's been running, for the past decade or so. So I think now it's kind of open season. I think people still don't believe in Georgia, and rightfully so. They have the best roster right now. So I think that like you said, Kirby's not great X and O guy, so I think the gap has closed a fair amount between us and them. And a guy like Nico, I think he gives that extra edge. Can we get in a guy like Lance Hurd? Sounds like maybe we do. Can we get that O-line beefed up? Defense should be good. I think that gap's continuing to close. And, like you said, we got to go out there and beat them next season. I think next season is probably our best shot to go get them. If we can do that, then I think that can kind of help prevent them from being kind of the new dynasty like Bama's been for the past decade or so.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So also, obviously I've talked a little bit about some players that could potentially be leaving from Alabama. And now with Kalen coming in, I'm wondering, are there any more players that are going to try to enter into the portal? I just saw that Bond, the kid that played or one of the kids for Bama that played at Buford, saw that he just entered into the portal. I'm hoping that a guy like Justice Haynes doesn't try to step out, and go play in a more pro-style type of an offense, especially at Georgia, because I do think that Georgia was one of his top schools.
Right.
And I'm trying to think about who else, are there? Well, you know what? I'll tell you something else too to kind of keep in mind is I wonder how well is this offensive scheme going to work with that big offensive line that Alabama has right now, because those guys are big. I think that Alabama had the biggest offensive line in the entire country. They average 340 pounds. Are they going to fit into that scheme where it's a little bit less? It's not so much of the, moving bodies. It's just more about, it's kind of like walling guys off type of a deal.
That's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting because I think that's kind of what Tennessee's been trying to build is we're trying to get, 6'6", 330 across the board. And we've kind of said, hey, if we get those type of maulers in there with the way we spread the field, it could be dangerous. So, we'll see. I think that definitely will take a step back for sure. And that's not saying much. Heck, they won it every other year for the past however many years, but I definitely take a step back, and they'll probably be a perennial, 10-win team, something like that. We're right there kind of custom playoffs. But I think it's time for the new dogs to step up. I think you see Tennessee stepping in there. I think you see, watch out for Auburn. We've been saying that since they hired Hugh Freeze. Lane Kiffin's trying to get things going. So he's walking into a very competitive division. Well, they won't have divisions anymore, but he's walking into a very competitive conference. And we'll see if this thing can swallow them up whole. But, yeah, that's a great point, though. Will the big bodies, will they work in that scheme? I think they will because they're 5-star guys.
Yeah, well, really, if you think about it, if they had more bigger bodies, this past season, they probably would have won the national championship. I think that actually got them beat versus Michigan. So it does just kind of sound like, he's going to have all the talent that he needs right now. And I think, just to kind of be opposite of what you're saying, I might just say that maybe he can come in and have a lot of early success because he's already got the guys. But I think maybe it'll start to taper off, because you have to be able to sustain that. And there's just a lot to it. Now, obviously, Saban's going to be breathing down his neck. How much of an input is Saban going to have? I think he's going to have a lot. And then, too, we know that that's a rabid fan base, or they haven't been lately because they've been winning so much. But now that they're probably going to be, like you said, maybe if they go back to, like a 10-2 or, 10-3, something like that, then maybe they start to kind of call for Kalen's head. So I think that there's so many different moving parts and pieces that this could go a whole lot of different ways. But I think overall, I kind of feel like that at the end of the day, he's just going to be kind of like a mediocre coach right there, maybe like on the outside looking in of the playoffs or right there on the cusp of the playoffs. And obviously there's no way that he's going to be Nick Saban. So I think that's something for all of us to celebrate for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Kirby Smart. I think that, I'm surprised that they didn't go after him. And maybe they did go after Kirby Smart, but that's the hire I would have, if I was Bama and I said, hey, I want to try to keep this thing rolling, I would have went after him because he's obviously been doing it at Georgia. He's built that thing up, even though it's already pretty much built. He kind of took it to another level. And I think he's probably the closest coach to Saban in terms of understand that everyday grind mentality that Saban kind of owns so well. You see a lot of coaches kind of reach the top, but not many can stay there like Saban has consistently. And I think, Kirby Smart being up under him for so long, he kind of understands that and kind of gets that. And we talk about all the time how he kind of can get those guys, get the 5-star guys kind of play with that dog, with that edge a little bit. But, I think the X's and O's will always kind of get him beat against teams that are close to them in talent and, with elite coaching. And that's where Tennessee's trying to get to. But, I kind of wish they went and got him, honestly. I wish they got Kirby Smart.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'm just happy that they didn't go out and get a guy like Urban Meyer. Like, I didn't even think about him, but then somebody kind of like brought it up, and they said it kind of like jokingly, and I was like, dude, that would be the absolute worst because he is a guy that even if Saban was still coaching, Urban Meyer is a guy that can beat Saban. I mean, he's people don't really give him nearly enough credit, but he's won everywhere that he's been to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He keeps on leaving places. Because he's kind of a sleazeball, but he's going to do whatever it takes to win. And that right there, I think, would have been the worst case for Tennessee. And then, I think that probably, I kind of felt like Kalen would have been the second worst case, but maybe it was Lane Kiffin. Again, Kirby Smart don't really bother me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that Saban was such a good coach because he was able to kind of like switch up what he did every single season. And I don't see Kirby Smart doing that. It's like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything different or anything new. So, if there's a team that matches up well with this 1 year, or if we don't necessarily have the personnel one season to be able to run this type of offense or any of that, their teams are just going to lose, because he's not going to change it. It's going to be him. So, I wouldn't be scared of him going there. Would have been happy to see it because I know that Georgia could potentially take that step back. But for the most part, I think that Urban Meyer would have been the worst. Maybe Lane Kiffin, and now I would say that probably Kalen.
So how would you feel about Primetime going there? You think he'd do anything if he went there?
Yeah, man. I think if you obviously he's going to be able to get a whole bunch of talent out there, and I think that he also would be able to get in the correct coaches to be able to get the proper like on the field stuff going on. So. Yeah, I mean, that probably would have been another scary one, but I never even felt like that was going to do that.
I don't think Bama would hire him. Yeah, I don't think he'd fit in there.
Nah, he most definitely wouldn't. But that's going to be it for this one. P, unless you have anything else to add.
No, that's pretty much it, man. We'll see how it goes. Saban's out, so like we said earlier, things wide open. It's anybody's deal, and you can kind of see all the SP coaches kind of getting chirped up a little bit about it and ready to go out here and take this thing. So excited for next season.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, y'all. As always, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks. Peace.